Marina would always remember 2020 as the year her life shrank and expanded at the same time. It shrank to the kitchen table, where her 3 children hunched over mismatched laptops, voices rising every time the Wi-Fi lagged. It shrunk to the strip of hallway between bedroom and bathroom, where she paced during conference calls, whispering apologies to clients as her youngest cried because the dog had eaten his science project. Her life expanded into fear, but she didn't know how to name it. It expanded into the long, quiet hours after midnight when she stared at the ceiling, calculating numbers that never quite added up. When the pandemic hit, the schools closed first, then the parks and playgrounds, then the whole world. The kids were suddenly always there at home. They were hungry, bored, loud, needing things from her that she no longer had in endless supply. And then her husband, Mark, came home one afternoon earlier than usual, his face drained of color, his voice too calm when he said, "They let us go." She hugged him without thinking, her arms wrapping around his back like muscle memory. Inside her head, something clicked into place, neat and terrifying. At that time, Nashville real estate was booming. Houses sold in days, sometimes hours. People fled cities, searching for space, yards, and rooms to use as offices. There had to be something positive. Surely, Jimmy, the agency boss, called a Zoom meeting that week. He wore the same navy blazer he always wore, even though they could only see him from the chest up. Behind him was the motivational poster that Marina had walked past every day before the office closed. A sunset, a lone sailboat, and the word perseverance in block letters. Jimmy said, "Work hard." He nodded as if this were new information and continued, "Good times don't last. Bad times don't last. Focus on the fundamentals. Sell the sizzle, not the steak." Marina muted herself so no one could hear her sigh. Jimmy loved cliches the way some people loved coffee. He used them frequently and without apology. Still, she wrote his words down on a yellow legal pad. She always did. Because sometimes cliches worked. Sometimes they were just truths that had been worn smooth from too much use. Sell the sizzle. So that's what she did. She sold sunlight streaming through kitchen windows and backyards that promised barefoot summers. She sold hope dressed up as square footage. She sold the idea that life could feel normal again if you just signed on the dotted line. By the summer of 2021, Marina knew something had to give. She woke up tired. She went to bed tired. Her patience had become as thin as rice paper, tearing without warning. One morning, after snapping at Elijah for spilling orange juice, she locked herself in the bathroom and slid down against the door, pressing her forehead to her knees. She wasn't falling apart, exactly. But she could see the cracks forming. That night, she spoke to Mark, half joking, half desperate. "I need Florida," he frowned. "Like a weekend?" She shook her head, lips pursed. "No, like stopping." They rented a condo on North Ocean Drive in Palm Beach Shores. It had white walls, pale tile floors, and a balcony that faced the water. 2 weeks. Marina called it Florida time, as if naming it made it real, contained, possible. The beach worked its magic immediately. The kids ran ahead of them, shoes abandoned, shrieking as the water chased their ankles. Mark laughed in a way Marina hadn't heard in months. The air smelled clean, like salt and sunscreen and something new. When they all stood at the edge of the sand, Elijah, squinting at the endless blue water and sky, said, "Mom, can we buy this beach?" Everyone laughed. Marina felt it bubble up from her chest, surprising and bright. She said, "I wish I could." She realized that she meant it more than she let on. 2 days later, she finally got time alone. She woke early before the kids filled the condo with noise. She carried a fold-up chair and an umbrella down to the sand, her feet sinking with each step. She set everything up with care, like she was building a small, temporary home. Then she stopped. She closed her eyes. The waves hissed and rumbled, steady and unconcerned. A seagull squawked somewhere above her. The ocean air tasted sharp and alive on her tongue. She drifted into that blurred space between sleep and wakefulness, where thoughts softened and time loosened its grip. It felt like heaven, or at least the closest thing she'd been to it in a very long time. Her mind didn't stop completely. It never did, but it slowed and rearranged itself. She smiled, thinking of Elijah's question. In a way, she had bought the beach, or a tiny piece of it. These moments, this quiet, this peace washed over her, and she let go. She owned this feeling. It was hers. Then the thought came, irritating and persistent, like a pebble in her shoe. If she had bought this feeling, who had sold it to her? She opened her eyes, squinting against the dazzling white of the sand, the impossible blue of the sky. The answer came with the next wave, rolling in and pulling back again. She had sold it to herself. Marina laughed softly, the sound nearly lost to the wind. All year, she had been selling sizzle to everyone else. She offered them dreams, futures, fresh starts. Somewhere along the way, she had forgotten she could do the same for herself. That afternoon, she told Mark what she'd been thinking. He said slowly, "So, you're saying you are your own client now?" Marina smiled to herself. Something like that. The rest of the vacation passed gently. Not perfectly. There were still tantrums and sunburns and arguments over whose turn it was to pick dinner. But it was all more gentle, more easy. Marina noticed things she might have missed before, like the way Mark watched the kids when he thought no one else was looking, the way Elijah got back up by himself after a wave knocked him down, and the way the two little ones played together joyfully without needing their mom or dad. When they flew home, Nashville felt louder, heavier, but Marina carried Florida with her. Not the beach itself, but the permission it had given her. She started small. She blocked off one afternoon a week, with no showings. She turned off her phone after dinner. She took walks without podcasts, without purpose, just movement and air. She sold herself moments, little ones, enough to get by. Sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet and the world felt uncertain again, she closed her eyes and heard the Palm Beach waves. And she remembered. The sizzle was not something she had to chase. She already knew how to sell it.